From Jacksonville, Florida, Governor Rick Scott. Governor, you're looking north for business these days. Why are you coming to my adopted state?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Joe, come home.
What are you doing?
Come home.
What are you doing, man? Yeah. What are you doing? You're trying to talk GE into moving your way, aren't you?
But, Joe, I read your first off, you need to come home, but I read your op-ed, and you're right. Connecticut is a beautiful state with wonderful people, but your children and your grandchildren, when you have them, are not going to be able to get a job because they're ruining the business climate in Connecticut. You know, we've added 879,000 jobs in a little over 4 years because our taxes are lower, we have less regulation. We love companies in our state, and we'd love, of course, Mika and all of you to come down here.
Yeah, well, it's not going to happen. My kids are in school in Connecticut, and they love Connecticut, but thank you very much for the invitation to come back home. I'd certainly come all the time and visit. But one of the things I tell my friends in Connecticut is just how great the business climate is in Florida and how they really need to start moving towards getting rid of some of those onerous taxes that started in 1991. I'll ask you the same question that I ask governors all the time. What attracts new businesses to states like Florida, like Texas, like South Carolina? What are the key things that businesses look for?
I think the biggest thing businesses are doing is they understand they have to compete globally. No customer is saying, I'll pay you more money for your product or service because you pay higher taxes, or it costs you to comply with unnecessary regulation, or because it costs you a lot of money to get a permit, or because you can't find the right workforce. So it's education, it's workforce, it's income taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, attitude. Does your government at the state level, at the local level, do they help your business? Do they help you attract the right employees? We're doing all those things in Florida. That's why last year 250,000 people moved to our state. We have almost 300,000 job openings in our state. Our workforce is growing. We've got the #2 most number of aerospace and aviation establishments, 3 most number of technology companies. This state is on fire. We are really doing well. So I'm going to come up to Connecticut today. I'll be meeting with companies today and tomorrow. And, you know, not all of them, but some of them that are competing globally know that Florida will be a better place to compete.
So let me just say, first of all, to all the Connecticut companies, be nice to the governor. He's a good guy. Shake his hand and tell him that Connecticut's had a wake-up call and that we're going to start being aggressive and competitive. But Steve Ratner, we've talked about this before. It's not complicated, but when you look at what the Connecticut legislature has done over the past 3 years, they've really stubbed their toe, and they've sent a message to businesses: you're not welcome here. What would they have to do to turn things around to attract businesses that you would invest in?
Well, I think it does come down in the first instance to taxes, and as we've talked about, Connecticut has been really tough on taxes. I think the tide may be starting to turn. You know more than I do about what's going on in Connecticut, but it feels like the pushback they got from GE, from Aetna, from the other big companies in Connecticut actually seems to have made a bit of a difference.
Yeah. Governor, do energy costs make a big difference? You talked about an educated workforce. How much does that play into it?
It's part of it. If you have a large manufacturing company, clearly it does. And so our utility costs are lower, but pretty much everything you do to do business in Florida is less. Your income taxes, your sales tax, your property tax, your utility cost. For your workforce, our tuition is, I think, about half of what tuition is in Connecticut schools. So the whole cost structure. Our government is smaller in Florida. The taxes per capita in Florida are $1,800, the lowest in the country, the lowest number of state workers per capita in the United States. We have figured out how to make government efficient here, and I'm continuing to do it every year. I just finished my budget, and we're continuing to control the size of government here.
Governor Scott, it's Willie Geist. I'll let you and Joe hang out this weekend in Connecticut and move on to a little politics. As you look at this growing field for the 2016 Republican nomination, which candidate impresses you the most?
You know, I had an economic summit 2 weeks ago, and I invited a lot of the candidates to come down and talk about jobs. I think you have to look at the biggest issue we have in our country and who's going to turn this economy around. And so, I think it's still early. I think they have to go sell their story. What is their plan to make the national economy do basically what we did?
Let me ask you. Jeb or Marco?
Yeah, right.
Who is it, Jeb or Marco?
You know, we've got Donald Trump in our state, Ben Carson in our state, Mike Huckabee. We've got, you know, and you have to remember, I've worked with all these governors as governors.
Is Donald Trump a serious contender?
All the Republican candidates. How's that?
All right. Thank you so much, Governor. Great.